I'm here on behalf of an uninvited guest, the past. The Good Friday Agreement was a diplomatic miracle, but it was a forward-looking miracle. It was about turning the page and forging a better tomorrow. So perhaps inevitably, it did not dwell much on the past. I say inevitably because if what to do about the past had been on the table a quarter century ago, then we wouldn't all be here this evening, because the negotiators might never have come to an agreement. Who should answer for a shared history of violence? Who should be prosecuted? Who should receive amnesty? What do you do when the state has colluded in violence? Should we hold the army and the police to a lower standard than the paramilitaries, or to a higher one? What do you do when you don't know who killed your loved one, or where he's buried, or if she suffered before she died? There was never any truth and reconciliation process in Northern Ireland, no mechanism for getting to the bottom of what happened during those 3 decades. Again, this should not be surprising, because the conflict ended in a stalemate. I once asked a former Republican prisoner why there'd been no truth process for the Troubles like there was in South Africa. And he smiled and said, because in South Africa, there was a winner. Is silence the price of peace? The peace has endured now for nearly as long as the Troubles themselves, but the peace process still feels incomplete. It's a very chilly peace. I was in Belfast last weekend and sat with a man who lost a close relative to the violence. This happened 50 years ago, before I was born. But to him, it is still as raw and agonizing as if it happened yesterday. You've got a whole generation of people who are traumatized by what they experienced, saw, and lost. And people don't talk about it, for the most part. I wrote a book about the Troubles. It's called Say Nothing. And when I do events in the North, a lot of the people who come up to talk to me afterwards are young people who grew up in peacetime, ceasefire babies. My parents lived through all this, they tell me, but they never talk about it. So there's this younger generation that should feel free of these pathologies, free to move on. They should be the beneficiaries of the Good Friday Agreement, yet they too are dogged by the past. It's not just the victims either, it's the perpetrators as well. A lot of people who joined the IRA did so for idealistic reasons. They wanted to see a united Ireland. Then, in the name of that political aspiration, they did terrible things, unspeakable things. They justified the bombings and the maimings and the shootings as a means to an end. But when peace came, there was no victor. The island was still divided. And it left them wondering, if this was where we were going to end up, then why did I do those unspeakable things? If you never achieved the glorious end that was supposed to justify the awful means, then where does that leave you? We tend to talk about trauma as something experienced only by the victims of violence. But the perpetrators of violence experience a special trauma of their own. We're here to celebrate, as we should. And none of what I'm saying is meant in any way to diminish the extraordinary achievement of Good Friday. But I don't think that silence should be the price of peace, or that it can be. A history of violence doesn't go away just because you choose to ignore it. Remember that line from William Faulkner, "The past is never dead. It isn't even past." I don't pretend to have the answer, and every concrete proposal offered to date has proven to be controversial for one constituency or another. But there must be some mechanism for confronting what happened during the Troubles. Because without it, the past will continue to haunt the North. It'll haunt this island. And in a subtle way, it will form a dissonant, telltale heartbeat, faint but always audible, beneath the music of daily life and the merriment of commemorations like this.